When my sister asked if I could babysit my little nephew Jack for the night as she and her husband had a wedding to go to out of town, I said no problem. I love the little guy. Now 3-year-old, he's at that really fun age where he's starting to speak well and is developing his personality. He's also pretty well behaved, and I was promised £50, so it seemed like a no-brainer at the time. I had only been to my sister's new house during the day at this point, never at night. I had grand visions of ordering a pizza, watching old films on her huge 50-inch widescreen TV, and stretching out on the giant leather sofa. But then things got weird. Jack's bedtime was at 7 p.m., so at 6:30 p.m. I got him his milk, tucked him into bed, and read him a couple of books. That kid is really into Beatrix Potter for some reason. It wasn't long before his little eyelids got heavier and heavier, and soon he was fast asleep. To celebrate, I popped the kettle on and settled down to watch something stupid on Netflix. I must have dozed off because the next thing I remember was being awoken with a jolt by the sound of Jack crying and screaming at around 11 p.m. Jack has been prone to night terrors and usually calms down after a bit of soothing, so I went upstairs to reassure him. I was surprised to see him sitting bolt upright in his bed, his little face pale and densely stained with tears. "It's all right, Jack. You were just having a nightmare. Come on, lie back down," I said softly, lying him back on the bed. I'm not Tom, he whimpered. "I didn't say you were, silly." I smiled. He often said the funniest things. "The lady did. She kept calling me Tom. I'm not Tom," he insisted angrily. "A lady in your dream? It's not real, sweetheart," I said. "It was just a dream." "No, she was here. She was here. I'm not Tom," he whispered. His whole body was shaking. It took a while, but I stroked his soft curly hair until he fell asleep again. I went back downstairs and decided to have a quick cup of tea before going to bed myself. I was just putting the kettle on when I heard a loud bang on the front door. I glanced at the clock. 12 a.m. Who the hell could that be? As I approached the door, I could see the blurred silhouette of what appeared to be a woman through the frosted glass. It was hard to be certain as it was so dark outside, but she appeared to have long hair and to be wearing white. I walked toward the door slowly. I could feel my heart pounding inside my pajama top. I carefully unlatched the door and paused for a moment before throwing it open. I was shocked to see nothing. There was no one there. I was so confused. Was the silhouette a trick of the light? The shadow of a tree? I stepped out of the door and onto the patch of grass in front of the house. I looked all around but couldn't see anyone. Just darkness. Suddenly, I caught a flash of white in my periphery. I slowly looked up to the window of Jack's bedroom, and that's when I saw her. The lady. Although the night was black, I could see her very clearly. Her face was deathly white and framed by long, dark hair. What terrified me most was her expression. She wore a painfully wide, manic grin that stretched across her entire face, showing sharp, angular bones. She didn't move. She just stood there, grinning, her eyes crazed and unblinking, focused on me. I have no idea how I summoned the strength to break free from the all-consuming fear that had frozen me to that spot. But I found myself running back into the house. I raced up the stairs to Jack's room to find him lying on the floor, screaming and sobbing hard. I picked him up, grabbed my car keys, and ran out of that house as fast as I could. I can't remember if I even locked the front door. All I wanted to do was get Jack as far away from that place and that lady as possible. Jack slept at my flat that night while I stood watch. As he lay beside me, breathing softly and peacefully, I tried to make sense of what had happened. Who was that lady? Should I have called the police? The next morning, my sister called at around 9 a.m. "Where are you? Where's Jack? Is he okay?" She cried down the phone, panicked and confused. "We're at my flat. We're both fine. Something weird happened at your house last night. We had to leave. I'll explain when I see you," I said as calmly as possible. "We're here now. The police were outside the house when we arrived. Our next-door neighbor's child has been abducted. I thought for a second it was Jack and..." She started to cry again. "It's not Jack, don't worry. He's safe. Your poor neighbors, though. Do they know what happened?" My mind was racing. "No, but the police are searching the area. Hopefully they'll find him soon." She sighed, exhausted. I suddenly felt an ache deep in the pit of my stomach. "What's the boy's name?" I asked, already knowing the answer to the question. Tom, she replied. His name is Tom. I was about 13 or 14, and I was babysitting 2 boys for some church members. I had done it before, and the kids loved me, and the parents were very comfortable with me. This was a night where they were going to be gone for pretty much until like 2:30 in the morning. I was doing it for free that day because they were going to do something church-related, and that's just how I rolled. Anyway, the house they lived in was an apartment complex. You know, one of those small ones that had 2 floors and 4 places in each spot. They're on the bottom floor with 2 bedrooms on either side of the apartment, with the kitchen on the left and the living room on the right, with the sliding glass door to a small patio and a public bathroom next to the front door. It was about, I think, 1:30, and I knew they would be getting home soon. The kids were knocked out, obviously after practically begging and 3 bedtime stories, and I had finished my homework. They didn't have cable. This was before Netflix became an online service. So they had a couple of DVDs and VHS to watch, so I grabbed Land Before Time to make the night go quicker. I was already very tired and had nodded off a couple of times. About 2, I could hear knocking on the front door. Knowing the parents had a key, I did nothing but sit there in the dark with the TV glowing. Being a paranoid person who watches and reads enough horror, I grabbed the baseball bat that was next to the couch. And what happened next will haunt me forever. I heard a small voice, almost like a young woman's. "Oh dear, that won't help you." My heart stopped, and I realized the patio door didn't have the blind shut. My eyes shift slowly to the door, and I see someone on the patio staring in. I couldn't make anything out other than they were short and wide. I screamed and ran into the kids' room. Thankfully, they were still asleep. Sadly, this was before I had a cell phone, and there were no cordless phones. All I did was push the dresser in front of the door and stared at the one window of the room. That's when it became dark as a shadow loomed on the window. The knocking started again, and the woman's voice called out, "Come on, dearie, I won't hurt you. Please come out." The window was being knocked so hard I was afraid it would break. The kids finally woke up, and they were screaming and scared. I was a big girl and could at that time lift my own weight. But knowing I had 2 kids with me, I became vulnerable and afraid. Within 2 seconds, I hear the father yell out, "Hey, who the hell are you?" And the person ran off. The front door opened, and there was harsh knocking on the kids' bedroom door. Thankfully, it was the parents, and after I let them in and put the dresser back, I explained what happened, and they called the police. When they arrived, they found nothing but the bushes that hide the patio were cut up and ripped up to get through. I babysat for them once more after that, but after they moved away about 5 months later, I never babysat anyone ever again. And again to this day, I know the woman was long gone, but every time I hear a knock, a chill runs through me. About a week ago, I published a babysitting ad on Craigslist. I know what you're thinking. Hey, what a great way to get murdered. But I'm in college and desperate for money, and no one's hiring because I live in a small town in the middle of January. So I thought that babysitting would be the only way for me to make fast food money. It took me a few days to fish through all of the emails from perverts online asking for a hookup, and porn sites trying to sell me memberships. Eventually, though, I got a real response. The response made the job seem urgent. The man in the email said that he'd just been called into work late and that he needed me to look after his 4-year-old son until about 10 p.m. tonight. The kid gets a ride home from another parent, so I don't have to pick him up. I can't remember the details. The job seemed legitimate and easy, so I agreed to do it. When I made it to the guy's house at 3:40, it became abundantly clear that the man who hired me was not a rich man. The house was small and dirty. Garbage covered the floors, papers and books were scattered throughout the 2 bedrooms, and the kitchen sink was filled with dirty dishes. I would have been shocked by the mess, but when I posted the ad, I kind of guessed that I'd be working in environments like this. The one thing that stood out to me, though, was the basement door. Someone's head sealed it shut. It also bulged outwards a bit, as if something was pushing against it. Before I could let the door get to me too much, a tiny, adorable child came up behind me and yelled, "Boo!" I pretended to be scared, and he laughed at me. The kid had jet black hair, excessively pale skin, and big brown eyes. He seemed a bit small for his age. I asked him what his name was, and he answered, "Stanley." Stanley and I played for most of the night. He loved playing hide and seek, but for some reason he only liked seeking, and he was good at it. As the night went on, I started to look for more and more difficult hiding spots, but Stanley found me in all of them. At dinner, I told Stanley that he was the best hide-and-seek player I'd ever played against. He agreed with me in a sarcastic way that seemed a bit too old for him. After dinner, Stanley suggested that we play a few more games of hide-and-seek, but this time in the dark. I reluctantly agreed. I'm scared of the dark, so the thought of being in it for a long time made me cringe. I figured that I could just hide near a window every time or something so that it wouldn't be too dark. In the dark, the games became a lot more unnerving. I jumped a bit every time I heard two pop cans tap against each other, or a pizza box crumple under the weight of the small boy who was looking for me. After the second round, Stanley started to talk while he was looking for me, saying things like, "Where are you? You know you can't hide from me." And "I'm getting warmer." As the rounds progressed, the things Stanley said got creepier and creepier and louder and louder. "You can't hide forever, Caitlin. This has to end sometime." Finally, I decided to only play one more round with him, and then we would play a different game. To make sure that the round went quickly, I hid behind the door in the master bedroom, a place I was sure he'd find me. When I went behind the door, my heart dropped into my stomach. Written in messy red letters on the door was, "Ready or not, here I come." When Stanley stopped counting, he didn't run in my direction. He ran into the kitchen. I heard the cutlery drawer open, and then a long, sharp sound of metal sliding against metal. I quickly slammed the door shut and pushed the dresser up against the door so that Stanley wouldn't be able to get in. Stanley started screaming and slamming the metal object against the bedroom door. His voice was no longer human. Now it was demonic. "You can't hide forever, Caitlin. The door won't hold me out forever," I screamed. In the other room, I could hear another voice, a man's voice yelling up from the basement. "Is she dead yet? Can I have my son back?" Without hesitation, I jumped straight out the window and landed pretty badly, but I got up and ran as fast as I could. When I look back, I see a grown man sprinting straight toward me. I just kept running until I got home. That's all we got from today's stories. Let me know what you thought of each individual story. Thanks for watching, and be sure to like and subscribe because you would not want to miss the next story the Haunted Sketchbook got in store for you.